Okay, we are live.
Do I call the meeting to order?
Mhm.
I had to take a month off and I forgot what I was doing. All right, we'll call the meeting to order then. Roll call.
So Will Rowdy Bush here.
John Sampen here.
Christina Tracy here.
Jeff Howe is here.
Chris Mowen here. All right, approval of last month's meeting minutes.
Well, good. I didn't see any.
I have one small correction. I put, I listed John at the signature line as co-chair rather than vice chair. I think technically it should be vice.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, I think they're
Is that something we can just,
You can
Yeah,
write it
right
on
on
there,
here.
sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
okay,
I'd make a motion. We approve the August 24th meeting minutes.
Second,
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll just have
Is
to
this
sign those.
the
Yeah, since
signature?
I was not in the
Sure.
meeting that month. I'll have, John will be signing those. Administrative items, we have our next meeting date scheduled for October 25th. 4 PM. Unless there's objection.
no objection, but I know already that I won't be able to be here.
Else is
I should be good.
Okay,
If we have other people that can't actually come, should we look at some point for a different meeting time? How should we work that?
we need 3 for a quorum, so.
So we should be okay if we
Yeah,
just,
as long as 3 of us are available.
Okay.
Um,
And I'll be gone for 2 weeks, so I can't exactly,
right.
shift it around.
that's got to go back to Jeff.
All right, we'll keep the 25th unless something major comes up where we
That's
might
good.
need to adjust or cancel. The last month's meeting, we had a discussion on the landscaping and a letter went to, the landscaping verbiage in the ordinance. And a letter went to city council. I don't have an update. Heather, did you hear anything from them?
I believe they've done 2 readings of that ordinance so far.
Okay. No, there's been no comments or objections.
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, we'll get on to local designation. University Hall. So there's 2 items, first one being the building inventory. I know, I think that's sitting in my inbox. I need to look that over. I don't know if, Will, have you had a chance to look at that, building inventory that Heather had started?
He wrote that one.
Oh,
Yeah,
he
that
wrote-
Yes.
you
one's
wrote
done. That
one.
one's done. Yeah.
That one's done. So what's the
The courthouse was the one
courthouse is
that's,
what's in my inbox. Sorry.
I sent a couple items. They're very minimal because it was
Great.
pretty well already completed. There was just a couple spots where like roof material or something. I think I checked the boxes. And a couple NAs. But
Okay,
other than that,
great.
about photographs, were those do you have the photographs that you
No,
needed?
we need those. Yeah.
Or do you
of the
want me to
courthouse.
take those and send those to you?
Sure, that'd be great if you don't mind.
John, you'd send over an email with some information on University
Yeah.
Hall.
And I know Will and I were there for the opening of the gateway.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else, Rose was there. Great.
I was within earshot over on Shasta Hall porch.
Um, And I'm still a little disappointed we couldn't do University Hall at that point, but it was a terrific opening and a beautiful new space, I think. I did walk around and inside University Hall to see if there's any kind of historical markers. I found nothing. Now it's a pretty big building and I didn't go through every hall. But as far as I can tell, there's nothing posted there historically about that building, and would be great if we can pursue something. And I know the markers that they have, and I don't know, did everybody get my second email?
Yes.
The first one apparently wasn't readable or something, right?
Yeah, it just said images couldn't be.
Okay.
yeah, I
The
don't know
building
what it said
picture
there.
showed up, but I didn't see the other.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's all I could find in the building. It seemed like they were very proud of the donors and a couple of former administrators, but nothing about the building. So I hope we can pursue something from our committee to recognize that building and also our HPC sponsorship of the historic designation.
So I am jumping ahead, but just since we're discussing University Hall, Heather and I discussed possibly getting a description together for that to be featured as our October Building of the Month.
Excellent.
Um,
It's a good idea.
So I don't know if do you have information on that building already?
Just from what Will,
Probably just in the write-up. Being the first
From
building.
the
and-
inventory, yeah.
yeah,
So I think if we kind of, I can look through that,
It
pull
had
out the
the
information. for the-
architects and the
Yeah.
constructors and that it was the first building. It was built about the same year as Williams Hall, but this was actually the first one. There was
Hmm.
someplace there was a dollar amount like $150,000, but then it talked like it was for the two. So I
Mm,
didn't want to put down that it was like
Yeah.
for Universal
the
because it
one.
wasn't absolutely sure. I
Right.
didn't want to put anything that's not factual.
So I think there's enough information there. I can pull something together for the October Building of the Month. And then maybe that will help remind
Couple.
others that that we want to recognize it
think
more
at the,
formally.
at the end of that, I think there's a couple things that J.F. Kennedy spoke there when he was running for president. He was a senator at the time.
Mhm.
And I think Joey Brown did his last play there. So there's a couple things that were historic in the
Dang,
building.
Yeah.
do you think, and I'm willing to pursue this if we want to as a committee, organize another meeting with President Rogers to discuss what they might be interested in what either them producing or us producing for them, some kind of a plaque, or Will, you had an idea
The
about,
photograph that John sent had the exterior view, and you notice there's a couple brick, like part of the stairs and the ramp. There's a couple spots there that some small plaque could be put,
Mm,
possibly just to say it was the first building. Not a lot of historic description about, but something so people walking by can look at it as they walk on that sidewalk, you'd see that. Versus a sign out in the yard, out
Right.
or something inside that people wouldn't see. I think something there to say that it was the first building and the date. And maybe just the architect and constructor, and that's it, just minimal.
Mhm.
I would like to see also though, a plaque on the inside
Mhm.
with, and BGSU seems to like pictures with their plaques, at least in that particular building. I brought along, this was a postcard that was sent from my father. He lived in Gibsonburg in the 1930s, 1939. And he was apparently courting a woman here at BGSU and had written her a postcard with the picture of the gateway at
Oh,
that time. And I'm sure BGSU has that picture and it might be fun to have that posted with a plaque if we want to pursue that.
Different.
It's a little bit different than now.
It's a little different than now.
Yeah.
If you're willing to coordinate a meeting with
With the president
President
or
Rogers, we can-
his associates,
staff,
whoever he
yeah.
might want to consider this.
'cause I know there's been emails, but maybe a meeting would be more productive to, move things forward.
Even the one we met, I can't remember her name. Milliken, was it Milliken? She was like, I think in design and construction, she was like the head of that.
Yeah, it wasn't Milliken. I can't tell your name.
It was probably
Yeah, it was
April.
a
Yeah,
familiar
they said that,
name. I
April.
can't remember.
What was that, Heather?
April is my guess.
April, yeah. April was in on that meeting with President Rogers.
She might be the one to meet with just to see.
Well, let me try President Rogers again and see how if he'd like to proceed with something, some recognition. Again, when we had our meeting about this with the mayor, Heather, you have to remind me how long ago that was. Could have been a year ago, talking about having a ribbon cutting ceremony for recognizing that building and having a plaque or something that we might be able to present at that point. I don't know if we still want to do that, but I can see what the president would like. So proceed with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great. The Wood County Courthouse and former jail, like I mentioned, that inventory is something that's on my plate I haven't gotten to. But was there discussion with the commissioners about any sort of ceremony for that?
Don't
At some
recall.
point. Couldn't remember what had been discussed previously. I don't know if that's something they would be interested in. But maybe we'd try University Hall first and then move to the courthouse.
And I'll send you just photographs for you to insert.
Great.
And that would include the jail also.
Yes.
We did.
Okay.
328 East Court Street. Is that officially listed? That's been added in the ordinance?
Not yet. And I
Oh.
do not believe a hearing has been scheduled yet.
Oh, okay.
So it went from planning commission to council.
Right.
The planning commission recommended approval and now it's in council's hands.
Okay.
So that's the update.
So we have on here the Boomtown District, a discussion based on our strategic plan. The last few meetings, we've sort of said like, we're not, there's not a real strong process of moving forward with that. I just wanted to get everyone's take on, are we interested in sort of, looking at setting a boundary for that or?
My thoughts, I looked at it and I'm thinking to keep the same boundary, but just work on houses within that.
On the boundary of the National
the
Register
one
District,
was- Yes. Versus another separate one.
right?
It's just, my thoughts were to keep the one we have, but then start looking at focusing on certain houses, maybe the ones along Worcester,
Mhm.
Court Street, some certain houses.
So you're suggesting designating individual houses and doing them one by one
Yeah.
instead of trying to do
Yes.
entire.
Yeah, in other words,
district?
you're just try to fill it at some point that's like they're all completed. Or,
Yeah. Are you talking about doing the inventory or actually nominating each individual?
well, be
property?
like the nominating, or if an individual has a property within the district, but
Right.
not not redoing the district. You know, it'll be just looking at which ones have been
Mhm.
completed and are part of our listing, our register. But there'll be some that aren't yet.
When you say completed, you mean they
They're in the register. They've gone through the process, say, of
with the
three
inventory,
twenty-eight.
Uh,
Yeah,
like that one, but
like
there,
328 East Court Street.
at this point, though, there are none that have
Right.
been done.
No,
Okay,
but it's still the same district. It's just there's no registered houses or buildings within it. That's just my
Yeah.
thoughts.
So within the National Register district that was created in, the 1980s, it's
Yeah.
something, 87 or something. I can't remember the exact date. There are 13 houses that have, were kind of given some history and description of I don't know, I think there's 180 properties in that. So there's a starting point there with that
Mhm.
information.
Do you to focus on those or and the other thing too, the second map was Main Street.
Right,
So it's the same thing was instead of reestablishing the boundaries on Main Street, that's already there. So it would be the start looking at building. within.
Mhm. So I think if we want, I think we have to be, we either need to look at it as a district or individual properties because they're gonna be different processes, I think. I mean, we'll still inventory each building,
Right.
but if we're doing an entire district, it might be a little, there might be
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
I
more or
feel
less
like it'd be
information.
like as they apply. They apply or we seek them out to
Right.
apply,
Ask our, fellow community members. I mean, if we wanted to do a district, if we wanted to propose a district, we could. There's that process within our ordinance that we would be surveying the those community members. See if they're interested.
just seems to me that to do individual properties is going to take us forever to complete this. And I know originally, at least according to what I thought we were going to do is propose an entire district.
One district.
One district, well, we can do multiple districts, but Boomtown would be one district and hold the residents and have discussions and have meetings. And now I don't know if the inventory has to happen before or after that, that process might take place, but then move forward with that district if it's approved by the residents and by City Hall, by the City Council, sorry. And then hopefully we could do the inventories after that.
Right. I think we definitely would need a boundary so we know who,
Right.
Who we're reaching out to. Individual inventory maybe could be held off. But a general idea and, like John and I met once about if we use the National Register district, do we want to, there are some places on the fringe that were not included, that maybe they would be. So that's, then we started, that's where that discussion sort of.
What do you think the
Well-
advantages of doing individual properties would be?
Well, I just thought of, instead of having another Boomtown district, we have the HPC Boomtown district, then you've got the National Historic, it's got a different boundaries possibly with the national. I
But-
thought they were trying to have one, but
Oh,
that's a good point, though. There's probably properties that are not on this
right.
that could be or should be.
Is this I guess, more of my question is this a project that we're wanting to, go full steam ahead? Or, I know some of our strategic plan was a lot of this community engagement that we've been focusing on. do we not go full steam, go half steam?
Go full,
ahead?
if we go full steam and announce it and start talking with different civic organizations, or if we're not going to do that, then we need to know.
Right.
We need to make that decision. Yeah.
Opinion?
I'm wondering what, how this relates to the new zoning proposal,
Mm.
which looks like it's going to be, passed. In that proposal, it's possible that some of these properties will change radically on the basis of that. I don't know what effect having a district would have on that. I meant to look at our ordinance and see,
And compare it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So our ordinance is, I mean, that specific portion of the code won't be changing.
Correct. Mhm.
And it's, it's written so that commercial or residential properties, will be a similar process. And it's very, I mean, I can't imagine a district where it wouldn't include both residential and commercial buildings, or I should say properties. They may not always be buildings. So if an area is changing from, a multifamily residential to commercial, I don't know if that would change our process a lot.
No, I mean, bottom line, if you're not on the local register, it doesn't kick in either way. So if an owner is not
Right.
going to approach the commission with interest, then
And that depends on the individual designation, right? The district designation.
either or.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Say that again, Heather.
So-
If we have a district
Mhm.
and the and the property owners, the majority of them approve of that district, then we have some jurisdiction over that district and the building code that goes with that, correct?
The jurisdiction is for the certificate of appropriateness. So if they are going to do any exterior changes.
Right.
In reason, I guess it's hard to say every single thing you do with the outside of your house needs a COA.
Right.
That's really not the case, but yeah, they would have to get a COA through the commission.
So if one of the homes is purchased and the owners decide they're going to tear down half the building and put up a brand new aluminum porch that isn't appropriate, we could say, no, may not do that.
Correct.
Which seems to me that if we want to preserve that area, we should have a district and not bother with individual homes if the owners, the majority of the owners agree to it.
Right. That was the basis of what I was not very clearly trying to ask about, right? Or suggest that maybe the district is important to have in place first for that reason, right? So that we have the residents sort of aware of what's going on and mobilized in a sense. But is there anything to say how many people need to buy in, or can individual
it's-
properties not buy in and still
Yeah, there
create
is.
a?
So the
Actually-
way our ordinance is written, there will be
Thank
a
you.
survey sent out to the property owners. They will have a chance to say, yes, we support this, or no, we do not support this. That information will go to city council to inform them on how
Okay,
to move forward.
thank you.
Yeah, it's not exactly, there's nothing in the ordinance that says we have to have, 60% or whatever. It's
Right,
just
okay.
that information. Just, it'll help city council make their recommendation, how to move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure if 75% of the residents don't want this, then
Right.
it probably won't be approved.
Right.
But I know when we were discussing this with the city council, there was a lot of discussion about that particular
yeah.
subject.
I
And
figured there.
and
Yeah.
and there were some individuals that wanted, percentage of the homeowners, but I think that was not included in the ordinance.
Thank you for catching me up on that.
Yeah. So for today's meeting, I think I'd like to just come up with, what is our next step, next decision for Boomtown District, if that's something we want to keep on our agenda, wait, or wait a little bit. If we want to keep it on our agenda, I feel like we need some, what is our next step?
Are those 13 houses, you say 13 houses, are they joining each other?
No, they're
Put a
just,
district
they're
around
kind of, like the main examples of the district
Is there a
style.
few of them that are grouped together that we could look at it becoming a district then?
I can't remember. I'd have to look at,
And do
there's
like if
maybe-
there's a group of 3 or a group of 5 or,
right,
no.
Now, I think there's,
no,
my wife and I did a drive around. We had trouble finding some of them, but they're all spread out over the
I think they
Boomtown
are.
area.
Okay.
I mean, we could go by street also, but it'd sure be nice if we could do a big district and not do this one piece at a
That's what I
time.
was thinking. I thought if there was all 13 or 8 and they
Right.
doing it.
Yeah.
It might be like even establishing a district of it's either like Church Street or Worcester.
Right.
I-
There's a lot of,
I'd like to see this continue on the agenda. I'd like to see it be part of our continuing strategic plan as a district. And if for whatever reason it doesn't go through, if we have too much objection, then I would say we could then start looking at individual properties and
well, and
identifying them.
possibly get input from the friends.
Sure.
So it's, if this, to keep this moving forward, our next step, it sounds like would be, looking at a boundary, which we have those maps and we've talked about this before, but I think maybe putting a timeline to when this might occur would be useful. I'm not necessarily looking for that timeline to happen today. I just, trying to figure out how to keep it going.
If we want to expand the Boomtown area to, or to shrink it,
Right.
either way. Any ideas how we might do that? Do we have some individual properties? And I think there were some that were brought up already that were put in consideration
Mhm.
for expansion.
Right.
Who had that list? You remember?
I don't remember.
Okay, I don't either.
I know the Carter House, I think, was one of them, the old children's home.
Right.
Um,
And maybe some of the homes off of Haskins on the curve.
so that's obviously these boundaries can shift as we, it's not like this boundary was, end all be all. If we get a district and then we add to it later.
Right.
But I think we want to be strategic about what that boundary really looks like if we want to move forward with that.
Could maybe we could I'd suggest that we just all think about this, make recommendations for expansion or for changes and put that on the agenda again for next month. Maybe if we don't finalize it, get closer to finalizing.
Yeah, what
Okay.
that could look like.
Okay.
There's one of our homeworks for next
Okay.
meeting. I'd like to touch on the historic buildings of the month. I know we mentioned University Hall will be our October building. Cheryl's I'm blanking on her last name. Pepper.
Sure.
She has been working on 707 West Wooster. I think that should be ready for the November building of the month. Is that right, Heather?
Yes.
It was
Mhm.
November. Okay. And then were we still? I should have pulled up that list, but
Yeah,
December was
so
gonna be.
Mr. Martin in our audience wrote
Yeah.
one for the Presbyterian
Presbyterian.
Church, which we discovered has a nice tie to 707 Booster. The
Oh.
owner was a benefactor of getting the stained glass windows done, so we thought it'd be a
Okay.
good logical timeline to do November and December.
So December will be the Presbyterian Church.
Mhm.
Great.
He even gave us pictures, so we really appreciate that. So we're
Yay.
pretty much good to go.
Great. Then we'll have to, I know Cheryl was also working on another house on West Wooster Street. I can't.
We're not sure that one's gonna work out, so.
Okay.
yeah.
Were there other buildings of interest for building of the month? From anybody?
We would
Any of
like to
our
start looking at
friends?
2023 because the months go by really, really fast.
Yeah.
So
Um,
I think we have a lot of options. It's just,
yeah.
it takes time to research,
Exactly.
Right.
but there's a
Mhm.
lot of people you could focus on, events. I mean, I think there's a lot of ideas that can come from the highlight each month.
Had we talked about Rose's house yet as a possibility for House of the Month? Because I know in the long term, you're considering, you want it to be designated, right?
Maybe.
I like it.
I mean, I have a list of buildings that we've all kind of discussed some of the buildings downtown, some of the more, prominent buildings around town. What I'm hoping is, if someone will say, oh, I'm really interested in this building and be able to take on, the research of that. So I don't want to push any specific buildings without having interest in actually, coming up with the material. So.
We already
If
have
anyone-
information on the Masonic building from
that'd be
Dale,
great.
and I think an interest on Dale's part that be considered. Mhm.
Right? We'll slate that in early 2020. You said we already have information, so we can pull it all up. Great. So I can send an email with, where we are today in terms of what buildings we have on the docket, and then we can go through, if anyone's interested in researching any other.
Calendar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
The interpretive signage project. Since I was sick most of August, Chris and I we were able to speak on the phone for about, I don't know, an hour, a half hour, earlier this month. But unfortunately we weren't able to meet just since I was not well.
But I did
you
reach
wanna-
out, yeah. So I think the idea was that we would host like a gathering at Juniper downtown, similar to how Ann Arbor did their project. They had a call for local professionals, artists, architects, to come in and talk about the possibility of coming up with a signage system,
Mhm.
right? Focus being primarily on the downtown first. And so I did reach out to, when Chris and I spoke, I had the idea maybe reaching out to the BG Independent and having them write an article, making a call for an event. So I did reach out to JD Pooley, who is a friend of ours. And he got me in touch with the editor of BG Independent, and I have not heard back from, I actually just emailed, I followed up with her just now. So I emailed her. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that I just sent an email. as I was sitting here. So anyway, so hopefully we'll hear back soon, and
Did
but
we have a date? that
we
were
did
looking-
not, we
Okay.
did not come up with a date. We just wanted to come up with sort of the idea behind, making
Get people interested.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I have to say, I kind of like the idea that we're concentrating on getting the designations for the residential areas, but then moving ahead for the signage for downtowns. Got both things going at the
Mhm.
same time.
So next step for that, I think, would be to schedule that community event. And then I know we also have to get together some of the documentation for the city budget.
Yes.
So on that, what information do you need from us for the budget?
Really, I'm just looking for what amount
An
you
amount.
want to request and settle on, and then I'll write that up and put a description of what we're thinking about phasing in some signage. So it's likely not just a 2023 project, it's probably a multi-year, multi-phase project. So that way we're able to have some matching funds for grants, because there's so many grant opportunities, but we don't have a match in place.
So the CLG grant through the Ohio CHIPO is a 60-40 match grant, and I think it's up to 20,000, but let me double check that. And I know we talked about maybe just asking for the max amount, because we could use it up quickly.
Yep.
Oh. The max is 25,000. So they have they generally grant 7 to 10 grants a year. With a minimum, the minimum request is 5,000. So I think, like I said, I think 25,000 would go quickly for a signage program. So if we're all comfortable with it.
Do we need to have documentation about what we would estimate for each sign and how many we want? How much detail do we need for this?
I don't think it hurts to have too much detail, but at this point, I think it's just the idea of it and getting something in the budget. I don't think,
Right.
I mean, we have a lot of that background information already
Okay.
from some other projects that we can use.
Yeah, we could probably pull from all the stuff that Heather pulled and the detail behind how much those cost
Mhm.
as backup, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, quick question, the 60-40 match, how does that work? I understand it's a match, but like, so if it's the max is 25,000, what is it? What does the 60-40 mean when you say that?
Who puts up the 60 and who puts up
Yeah.
The state, the CLG grant is the
60?
60, and then the
Okay.
city would provide the other 40
Okay. The project,
of the project.
total cost. Okay, got it. Understood.
And so the grant is not due until February. By then, we'll probably need those, all that detail of, I'm assuming, never written a grant, but I'm assuming they want all that backup. But because the city budget is being reviewed in November, we want to make sure that's something that can. Hopefully they can say, we'll give you the funds, but.
We should be able to make a good case. I mean, we're a new organization and I know the city supports us. Well, I don't know, Heather, you know better, but I would hope that they would back us up on this. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of asks from several
Right.
departments, so
Right.
it's a matter of weighing that
Sure.
and the priorities, so. We have a little bit in our budget now, it's not 25,000, nowhere near
Right.
that. And then we still have our Boomtown donation too, that could be helpful in the future with other grants, so we have the Ohio History Connection too, literally that's due today, but that's another
Mm.
option into next year too.
Right.
So
What do we have in our treasury?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
I know it's maybe 1,000 or so.
Okay,
Do you need something like in writing that says this is how much we need for a budget? No.
I don't think so. I think,
Okay.
we're talking about it now.
Yep.
Looks like or sounds like 25,000. We can request and go from
Yeah.
there.
good.
And then you and Chris, you and I will touch base on a date for that.
Yeah.
Community event.
Yeah, I think just coming up with general timeline and it'd probably be. I would think you would, I mean, depending on when I hear from. Either BG Independent or the Sentinel, when they
Yeah.
can get the article out, right? I try to get it close to that date.
Yeah.
And this would be a discussion of the type of signage that we're
Yeah.
wanting to recommend and have our community help advise us.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's primarily mostly a design discussion, like
Right.
what would we want this to look like in the downtown?
Yeah,
So the call is for like local, like I said, architects, artists, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, graphic designer.
Graphic designers, great point.
I'm going to suggest that maybe we involve Marissa.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And just make sure that whatever date we choose, she might be able to participate. She's got a lot of good information.
And our hopes too is beyond that initial design discussion, maybe these are people who are interested enough to become friends or help us find other grants, those sorts of things for for this project. So,
Yeah, I think we talked before about maybe getting some community groups supporting, but would we have to have a non-official, non-city body that they would donate to? Or can community groups donate to the city? It's a city project.
well, yeah, I'm not sure. We have our foundation, right? No, we
No.
don't have a
Not
foundation.
yet.
They put it in the budget. I mean, they put it in like we have an account with the city.
Oh, okay.
I have a boards and commissions, so.
Probably a legal question, right?
Yeah, I think that's more of a kind of down in the weeds, maybe look
Yeah.
at partners. I think
Mhm.
that's part of the discussion, the downtown special improvement district, the chamber. I think there's other partners that potentially could handle donations. I don't
right.
think that's preferred of the city to do it that way. I know they were a little hesitant at the Boomtown and holding that money, but we knew it was important, so we're just making sure we still have that and we spend it the way you want to spend it, but I don't think that's the preferred method. It's
Okay.
really a foundation or another partner could handle that.
Okay, I just remember that we had
Mhm.
mentioned it before.
Yeah.
Now
And
that-
that's how Small Nation is doing it. I know we talked about Small Nation before. They actually are putting small plaques on each of their downtown buildings that have, an etched sketch of the building plus a history of the building. And they have private donors and their name at the bottom of each one that has sponsored that plaque. So that's something else. I don't think that's really going through the city at all. It's through that group or organization. So.
Yeah, and maybe that's something we could discuss when we have this special Juniper meeting. The private donors sponsoring a plaque or maybe one of the businesses would be considering doing that.
Right. The building owners even might be
Right,
their own donor for their
right,
own plaque.
right.
Who knows? All right, we'll move on to the public relations and educational projects. In September, we had our Ohio Open Doors. Both the Carter House and the Wood County Museum participated in that. I heard good things. I unfortunately couldn't make it down to the museum.
I went to the
but I
Carter
did
House.
Carter
Yeah,
House.
and I did too. Yeah. And
Impressive.
and apparently they had a pretty good turnout.
Yeah.
A lot of interest.
There.
Yeah.
So, that's an event that happens every year. So if we want to think about, in the back of our minds, who we might want to reach out to for next year for
Mhm.
Ohio Open Doors, that's a great program to get people into buildings they may not typically go into. There was also the introduction to local history. They had their digital resources and If These Walls Could Talk programs. Hopefully those were well attended. Marnie's got great information in those, so. I don't know if anyone was able to.
I
attend
went to
any
the
of those.
first one that was not, it wasn't the digital, just the resources in the library.
Yeah,
And it was by appointment only, and I think there were maybe 15 or 20 people there. But I don't think they were looking for a huge crowd.
Right.
But I wasn't able to go to the other ones.
I went to the one last Wednesday and it was very well attended.
that's
Yeah.
great. They've got a lot of resources and can point you in, directions for a lot of information. So glad to hear people are interested. So our future events, I've been in talks with Ted Long on doing an audio tour of downtown. So Ted runs Holy Toledo History, I think is the name of his organization. And he has done tours of Toledo, Maumee, and a driving tour down the Maumee River. But he's a graduate of BGSU and he lived in Bowling Green for a few years and said he was interested in doing some stuff here. So he's been working on a downtown tour. He reached out to me because there's a couple areas that he was hoping to find some more information. And so I think that should be available shortly. I can let everyone know. He actually was hoping we all might be the testers for when he,
It'd be great.
sets it up. So when that's out ready, I can send that out to everybody. The Heritage Ohio Conference, our agenda has it October 7th through 15th, but it's actually October 3rd through 5th. That is being hosted this year in Toledo. There's some really great sessions. I don't know if I'll be attending all 3 days, but I don't know if anyone else here can attend. There's some sessions that particularly pertain to commissions, which I think might be useful. But Monday the 3rd down in Findlay, they're doing a discussion of the historic preservation tax credits. And that is free to the public. So if anyone's interested in learning about that process, that's at the Jones Mansion in Findlay on Monday. I think it's 9/8. Here, let me check. In my calendar, but it's buried. I'll double check that, but I do think it's 9 a.m. on Monday the 3rd. But I think I sent that agenda to everyone. If anyone had questions, let me know. But like I said, that I know they're like, work days and things going on. But if you happen to have time to go downtown Toledo and attend those, they'll have some good information. Oh, we have the Wood County Virtual Gala fundraiser again this year. It's virtual. That's October 7th through 15th. And they have it's like auction style, their fundraiser. So, good way to support our Wood County Museum. I know we've talked about doing a local workshop on historic tax credits. I think that be useful. There hasn't been a project in Bowling Green that has gotten the state tax credits, so maybe we can entice some people to look into them. I was hoping that maybe, late winter would be a good time to host an event. I don't know how people are feeling about in-person events. Seems like most people are comfortable. as long
I
as
think
Winter
so.
turns out okay.
Yeah.
So we'll move forward with a in-person.
And Chris, the tax credits are only commercial, correct? There's no residential tax
There,
credit.
there's,
To make money.
it's any property that's income producing.
Mhm.
So with the exception of single family, so if it's a duplex or more of a residential, it qualifies for tax credits.
Okay.
But not for, obviously not for owner occupied properties and not for single family rental.
Right, not for single family.
Right.
Right.
So I'll start thinking about what that might look like, that workshop on the tax credits. And we'd also talked about the Tell Your BG History, maybe a night of kind of an open mic night style.
We did talk, yeah.
Is that something we think we might want to at least get a general idea of when we might want to host something like that? Or are we still interested in hosting something like that?
What isn't May what month is?
May is National Preservation Month.
Yeah. I was
That
just
might be a
thinking maybe
fun
that
one.
would be a fun. And maybe we would have some traction on the signage project by that point. We would
Yeah.
know. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, that could be a great time to do it.
Maybe we could find a host house, a historic house or a building that we could hold this in, create a little more interest.
Yeah, and I offered up Juniper as well for
Uh-huh.
that as a possibility.
okay.
If not, I mean,
Okay.
And then we also had the Take a Hike program. Is there, I know you said you might have talked about this at the last meeting, but.
No,
you
I
weren't
wasn't.
here.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
And I did meet with my friend who is a part of Destination Cleveland. And unfortunately, she and I both were on the board at the same time of Historic Gateway in Cleveland. And a lot of the executive director has left and there's a new executive director. So anyway, long story short is neither of us have good connection anymore to the Take a Hike program.
Oh,
But she said, oh yeah, I do definitely. I mean, we were, among the things that we discussed, she said, yeah, that program was so successful. And, again, I think it would have to be something that would be in partnership with, the university, maybe the drama department, if there were going to be actors who were taking part of it. Maybe if it was something on a smaller scale for Bowling Green and only around maybe it was, I'm thinking of like a series, right? Like every once a month this happened, or every, during the summer months it happened, or only, something like that. I feel like, so maybe some sort of adaptation towards that is what we kind of talked through. Sorry, I don't have a better update.
no, that's fine. I know there's sort of those like reenactment days at the
Mhm.
museum.
Right.
So they might be, people that we could reach out to when we're ready to come up with some program.
Yeah, you mean like the Living History?
The Living
Yeah,
History
I
Days. Mhm.
participated in that a couple times
Yeah.
as an actor.
Oh. Yeah.
That's one of the things I wrote down when
Yeah.
they asked me what my qualifications for this. were. Had to scrape everything together.
Were you Mr. Martindale
No,
No.
I was
or Tassel?
not Mr. Tassel either, but I was Mr. Trump, German American farmer and oil man.
Oh,
That was 2 years ago, or no, a year
it
ago.
was all in German probably.
I had to do it with the German accent.
Oh.
That's why they picked me, I think.
Oh. Okay, well, were there any other comments on our programs or events? I was gonna turn it over to lobby visitation, see if our friends have anything they'd like to share or comment. No? You're good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's sort of where we got the idea.
Yeah.
Don't want to give them too much credit, but yeah, we. No, but actually those are like 20+ years old. So the person who headed that project has passed away. So we did get some information, but it was really, really difficult because they couldn't find everything. And we have a little bit from Perrysburg. So I think they got them made in Canada.
Mm.
So
Oh,
Which signs, Heather, were you looking? You might not recall, but there were some that were very expensive. Do you?
the Ann Arbor ones were
Ann
very
Arbor ones,
expensive because
okay.
they're glass and
Okay.
heavy.
I
Yeah.
thought I thought we had another outside of Ann Arbor. That was one, but I don't remember.
Well, we looked at the museum. Those
Mhm.
definitely were pricey.
mhm.
Yeah.
And then we had the city park examples that weren't
Right.
too bad, but that gave us an estimate.
I think I recall the Ann Arbor ones were interactive. It was,
Yes.
like you said, and I thought that was like really unique.
Mhm.
Of those ones, yeah.
But they had something that came to mind at the Carter House when I was talking to Marnie, was the history of who lived in those houses. They had something up on that, but I was thinking it would be something to consider even for how, say, as they're like 328 East Court Street, as they're recognized, would be not necessarily a bronze plaque or something, but sort of like a plaque that names could be added to.
Hmm,
In other words, something that would show like, here is the history of who lived here. The inside, but it would be more or less for the homeowner as to put up somewhere they,
Yeah.
that people come in to see, because I know one person that their grandparents lived in Carter House when they owned the bakery where Pizza Nell is at.
mhm.
Okay. Last name is Ross. You know, that you get the names and the dates. And then leave enough space to keep adding names. Pass it on.
So how are the names added?
It's sort of like a trophy thing you'd see on a wall that has, whether it has our HPC seal, the seal or something, but then it just has, the names are like engraved.
Mm.
And so the, you know,
So you'd have to take the plaque and
Right.
have somebody engrave it for you.
have the, or the new owner would.
Yeah.
But I just saw it because there's a lot of history in the houses that, you know, they did have a listing of the people that were there. I think
Mhm.
Mauer put it together. But it would be interesting, like on, say, 328 Court, we have it say in documents now, but it would be something that could be posted at the house. Inexpensive, not, no, not like a bronze plaque that you can't really add anything to it.
Right.
This would be more like a,
There was, when we had our first friends gathering a couple months back, someone mentioned maybe, like even a QR code where you could go, it would link you
Yeah,
to
I think I
something
mentioned that.
digital and, that would, be something you could easily update. I don't know. Hopefully hopefully QR codes would stick around if you end up doing something
you
like
could
that.
put a lot
but-
into it, QR code. I
Yeah.
cut and paste the whole, the Declaration of Independence, but they get so small that the phones and that have to be pretty precise, because the more you add to that QR
Yeah.
code, the finer the pixels get on the QR code.
Right.
There's a lot of
I just
information.
learned something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I think what's interesting is too, is just all the ties during the oil boom
Right.
and the gas boom and, the Frony department store, and he had a house on Wooster,
Mhm.
and Dr. Lincoln, you know, he built the Lincoln block that's still there, the building's still there.
Mm.
And then he owned the house over here at 325 North Main, and he owned another house. You know, I just think that's really fascinating because they all built during that specific time period of that boom.
Mhm.
So it's just so many ties of
Yeah.
families that are
They're
still around
friends and-
here.
Friends and neighbors.
Right.
of these
And
Right.
yeah, it's really fascinating. And then, you know, some of them are built, you know, are actually buried in the cemetery in
Mhm.
Bowling Green, and just you can make a whole, so much you can do out of all this information.
Yeah,
At the living history, they always tell where they're buried.
yeah.
The first one I participated in, it was rededicating the pauper cemetery there at the home, so we knew where they all were. Just not precisely where, they're somewhere.
In that, yeah.
And you mentioned, Will, that the bakery was owned by someone named Ross.
Yeah.
Was it the same Ross that owned the hotel across the street?
I don't know.
I think.
They're. Cause they had the house, the Ross was on their list.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I said Judy Jennings was our department secretary in construction management. And she mentioned, I wouldn't have known it if Judy hadn't
Mhm.
mentioned, she used to go visit her grandparents at the house when they had the bakery.
Yeah.
But even say if you do the historic buildings would be that listing of,
Of,
you know, on a plaque or something, but not bronze, not something that's like a unchanged, but sort of like a living, something that things could be added to and
Mhm.
kept on, keep, pass it on.
Yeah. Be great. I know we're at lobby visitation, but I have this stack here that I completely forgot about. Sitting right in front of me. The BG Downtown Forward is hosting a community feedback session. There's actually two, October 18th from 8 to 9:30 a.m. and October 20th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. The question is, do you want to reimagine the future of downtown Bowling Green? So this is with partnering with the R3 program, which is rural redevelopment. I forget what the other R is. I should know, but I don't remember what the other R is. So they're just looking for community feedback on, it's specifically geared toward downtown, this program is, but you know, what kind of, what are we doing well? What do we want to see in the future?
Who's doing this and where is it?
It's located at the Veterans Memorial Building. That's the building in City Park.
On the 18th?
October 18th, 8 to 9:30 a.m. or October 20th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Yeah, there's a stack here.
Oh, you have.
These are, we can hand these out, right?
Yes.
Okay.
mhm. I wanted to add, as a certified local government, I received a letter from the United States Department of the Interior, National Park Service, that they have sent us a copy of the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and Guidelines on flood adaptation for rehabilitating historic buildings. So, knock on wood, luckily, we don't have the same issue that several other communities have with that, but I just want to let you know, we do have this resource in our office, and I really wish we had the standards in this nice book, because this is really, really helpful, but it's geared again towards flooding, so.
Do they print the standards still, or is it only digital format?
I've only seen it digital, but I have to believe it somewhere, because this is a really nice,
Yeah.
similar book they've created.
One other thought I just had and wanted to bring up. My wife, Marilyn Trude, is on the tree commission. And I know there's concern from some of the members of that commission about the road construction in town and how that impacts on the removal of trees. We know what happened many years ago with the Wooster Street Historic District, which a lot of the wonderful big old trees were removed because the They were apparently too close to the curbs and they had to replace the curbs. Would we have any interest in having a representative from the tree commission come and talk to us about that concern as the city replaces roads and curbs around the town? Because the trees make a huge difference in preserving our historic aura of some of our districts. No? Yes?
So just to have them come and talk to us about the
About the
preservation of-
concerns I mean, they're fighting to keep trees. The other concern is the lines that go through the trees sometimes, and the electric companies come along and chop them up in not very scenic ways.
Right.
So, I mean, there apparently, as I understand it, we have in Bowling Green equipment for replacing curbs like we did on South Maple that cut into the property of the owner and into the tree roots that might be there. And so then we have to remove the trees, and our equipment only has one set of width, and we don't seem to be able to work around some of these historic trees that are, 100 years, 150 years old. So I have a concern about it. I don't know if that is appropriate to our committee or not. Okay, we can think about it. And
It seems related. There's the landscaping
Mhm.
element in the ordinance.
yeah,
When you talk about the cutting of the roots, the house next door to mine in the summer of the July of 2019, a tree was blown down in that derecho that came through.
Oh, right.
And the thing was, there were no roots holding it, it just fell over and you could see that,
Yeah.
it had just been standing there. without
well,
roots.
I mean, if trees are damaged or they're diseased, of course, they've got to come down. But I just remember, and I'm sure all of you do too, the West Wooster and how it used to look
Mhm.
25 years ago, 30 years ago, and now it's starting to recover, but it's taken a long time. Okay, well, we can think about that.
Go ahead, Dan.
Well, it's good to be alive in Bowling Green. I got 5 things, quick things, not to belabor the meeting. What I've been doing. I was studying the people who used to own my house, and I wandered out to the graveyard and found most of them. Found graveyards of Judge Abbott, C.S. Van Tassel, and Cheney, who I guess owned a hardware store. I haven't quite located that yet. It might be real close to the Masonic Temple. I'm not sure. But I also noted that a lot of these guys had ownership of the home in their wives' names, simply to make it easier on probate court if they passed away first. It just seems that the men died first, not always, but that's one of the reasons why they probably did that. Happenstance, Heather walking down to the Black Swamp Festival and saw a person I knew and who lives at 126 Prospect Street. And I said, I've never been in this house. I wonder, this is the one with the animated devil on the front, next to the women's historic building. And come to find out, Heather, that's where Jimmy Hoffa got married.
Really?
That house ended up, quote, she said, it was called the marriage house.
The mayor, yeah.
So easily you went to
just
the
talking about that.
courthouse, get your license,
Just walk.
and then, and I haven't researched just yet, either it was some judge owned it. So I want
Yeah.
to try to find out who that.
Was that
Um,
Baldwin? So I need to send you the papers that Mr. Martin wrote because it talks all about Bowling Green being a marriage mill. And one of the few cities in the United States that was a marriage mill where they actually had brokers. They called them brokers that went out and like, oh, there's a people here from Michigan. They're probably here to get married. So let's take their hand and show them the way how to get married basically and how to almost get around the rules sometimes it sounded like. So it's actually very fascinating.
I don't know if she's got that information or not.
Yeah.
I have a source too, because one of the figures at the Living History this year was the Marion Jug, right? And they mentioned
is it?
that house. I
Oh,
didn't know
okay.
where. Now that's what I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
come up with.
Yeah, I
but-
have it. Yes. Mhm.
but-
There were
but-
two of them. Yeah,
But
Yeah.
I saw, yep.
Wood County Historical Society knows. Is it Millie who writes those? I think, yeah.
So that's 126 North Prospect. I can find out more things about that, if you'd like. I
Does
don't know
she
if I'm
mind if her
supposed-
house, we could write about her house maybe?
I'd have to ask her, and I don't know if I should say the person's name or, you know, or where, I could surely find out where her information came from. So. And then I have some information down the road with the Wood County Lodge. We have some things written up about its history coming from the Indian Presbyterian Village, some of the members and members from Fort Meigs that were soldiers that came here from Connecticut, Kentucky. And then they, you know, stayed around here after they were no longer needed. And I did find out that one of them bought that Wolcott house up in Maumee.
Mhm.
And that
Hmm.
was one of their houses. And they stayed here. And one of the places in Reading was the Milliken Hotel that the lodge occupied. And I think that was around the turn of the century, but I'm not sure. Digging into that. One of the people who came to the hotel was Clark Gable. It turns out he was a Freemason. So rumor had it that he stayed here. This area was a hotbed for pheasant hunting.
Hmm.
And the farming was done different, so corners of lots and fences were all over, and so that was good habitat for the birds. And people came in, and I understand Eisenhower came over to one of the hunt clubs up on the Lake Erie to hunt at one time as well.
That's interesting you say that because during the session at the library, Marnie, who talks about her house as an example, said the light post has a pheasant on it that someone handmade and that she found, I think it was at Goodwill, a pheasant that looked like her lamppost and she had to buy it. And
Yeah.
it turns out she looked at the bottom of it and had the initials of what she believes is the family member from the house that she randomly found, that it was a brother of some sort. And she even went back to Bowling Green High School yearbooks and looked up who their children were and where they were at today. I mean, it was really kind of a
Wow.
cool story. So when you said that about pheasants, she said, I'm pretty sure they were pheasant hunters based on their interest in pheasants. So that obviously all aligns with what you found.
I suppose there were more dignitaries that stayed at the Milliken Hotel. That was one on the walk list. I wonder if something's written up of that other thing I turned in last time. Somebody sure, I don't even know who owns that building now.
I
The
think
the
Mauer.
Milliken?
Yeah, I think.
Oh,
Mauer.
Bob
Mauer.
Mauer. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, along that lines too, I'm a member of the Fever Gun Collectors Club. And it's a unique double barrel shotgun that was invented by Myron LaFever in Canandaigua, New York, and Syracuse. And he was one of the early industrialists. The last 2 or 3 newsletters has this might be more appropriate for the museum, I don't know, but the building's gone. This was the last site that this gun was manufactured. Down with the Board of Trade, there was a building, there was a laundry company and actually a chick hatchery, and ended up being a girls' dorm at the university. It was called Ivy Hall. I vaguely remember, I came here in '69, so I vaguely remember that building, if it was still there or not, because they built the electric company next to it, and they rerouted Thurston, if anybody remembers how that jogged around. And there was something there all broken down, and I think that's when they tore it down.
Hmm.
But pretty interesting article.
So they were making these shotguns?
Yes,
Yeah,
he
and it
moved
was a-
from, they kept, like anything else, locomotives,
Mhm.
they always go out of business. Lima locomotive went out of business because they made the diesel electric.
Mhm.
Cars are doing the same thing now.
Yeah.
Cars going to electric, less parts, less stuff. Same thing with shotguns. If they didn't sell enough shotguns, it was all handmade stuff.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So they came to Defiance for some reason. And then in Defiance, one of the guys that invested in there was from Bowling Green. I can find his name. He was on the Board of Trade. So they had some problems there. They sold, they came over here, and he and this gentleman and another, this Myron Lefevre, they started to rent one of these Board of Trade buildings on the corner of Thurston and Wooster Street. And they were only there for a few years, and then they had some financial troubles, and then they moved on. But I own one of them, and it's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, someday it may end up in the Wood County Museum.
Mhm.
We'll see. So the last thing I have is I ran into Mike Siverson, who's our neighbor down the way. He and Matt Rieger, Judge Rieger, they've got a real interest in the history of this town. And of course, Siverson knows all the stuff about the audits, and he knows where every building is. So he offered, if we have any interest in finding out that stuff, that he'd be more than happy to help us. So
Could invite him to be a friend.
I did
Okay.
mention that to him. He said, okay,
Okay.
Great.
I owe him a phone call, so I'll
okay.
mention.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
By the way, I just found the name of that judge was Beistline, Barney Beistline. They pronounced it Bistline, but I think it's pronounced Beistline.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was Earl Bailey. The Beistline was the one who issued over 32,000 marriage licenses during his tenure. When I moved to Bowling Green, my mother, who spent her teenage years in Ypsilanti, Michigan, said, "Oh, that's where people go to get married."
We were before Las Vegas then, right?
Yeah. Mhm. Middle of the night. That's what they were using the shotguns for, maybe. right?
Chuck. Denver.
We have any comments from Lobby Visitation?
Yes, that was
That
the
was
last
it?
comment.
The last comment. Does anyone want a motion to adjourn?
I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. We are adjourned.